370 acres. Flat, dry, no irrigation, worst corn soil in the county. A Chinese company offered $700,000 above asking price to own it. The Air Force knows exactly why, and what they found should concern every American. That parcel sits 1 miles from Grand Forks Air Force Base, close enough that every drone test flight passes directly overhead. Close enough that the electronic signals those drones emit, their frequencies, their communication protocols, their radar signatures travel right across that land. In the intelligence world, that proximity has a name. It's called a collection opportunity. And Fufeng Group, a Chinese state-linked corn processing company, paid a premium to own it. The question is never who. The question is always why. November 2021, Grand Forks City Council votes 6-1 to approve the Fufeng project. No federal security review. No DoD consultation. A Chinese state-linked company buying land next to America's most sensitive drone base, approved by a local council that had no legal obligation to ask why. It took 4 months and a direct Pentagon intervention to stop it. I pulled the City Council transcripts, the USDA foreign land disclosure filings, and the Pentagon FIRMA records. They tell 3 completely different stories about the same piece of land. The USDA soil assessment tells you everything. Class 5, rating the lowest productive classification in the county. No irrigation infrastructure. No rail terminal within 18 miles. Any legitimate agricultural investor would walk away. Fufeng walked toward it and paid more to get there faster. When a buyer overpays for an asset that cannot deliver ROI on its stated purpose, you have to ask what the unstated purpose is. This land cannot grow profit, but it sits inside passive signal collection range of the base that flies America's most advanced surveillance drones. That is not a coincidence. That is a business case. And for the next 10 minutes, we are going to follow the money all the way to the intelligence. Most people think China buys American farmland for food security. That is the obvious story. That is the wrong story. The A to B narrative goes like this. China buys land. China owns American soil. That is the threat. Every mainstream news segment stops there. But that explanation cannot answer one question: why buy land that cannot grow anything? The hidden link is C. Agricultural equipment. Modern precision farming requires weather monitoring towers, soil sensor networks, grain silo automation systems, all IoT connected, all transmitting data continuously. That infrastructure, placed on 370 acres of flat open land, 12 miles from an Air Force base, is not just a farm network. It is a signals collection platform with agricultural cover. A standard agricultural weather tower stands 30 meters tall. On flat North Dakota plains, that elevation gives you unobstructed line of sight across 15 miles in every direction. Pointed toward Grand Forks Air Force Base, that is a listening post, not a weather station. Now, look at the soil sensor network. Standard precision agriculture deploys sensors every 50 to 100 meters across the entire field, across 370 acres. That is 150 to 200 individual transmission points. Change the firmware. Change the frequency. You no longer have a soil monitoring network. You have a distributed antenna array, the same architecture used in professional signals intelligence collection. This is not speculation. In 2022, FBI investigated Huawei equipment on cell towers near Malmstrom AFB, Montana, capable of capturing DoD communications, including nuclear command signals. Components capable of transmitting on frequencies outside their declared parameters. The cover story was precision agriculture. The hardware told a different story. Montana was not isolated. Same IoT cover story. Same proximity pattern. When you see the same strategy repeated across multiple states, that is not coincidence. That is doctrine. Here is where the story gets uncomfortable. China's official position. Fufeng is a legitimate business. The Grand Forks deal was legal. American paranoia is blocking free trade, and technically they are not wrong. The CFIUS process, the federal committee that reviews foreign investments for national security risk, has no mandatory jurisdiction over agricultural land purchases under $50 million. Fufeng's deal was $2.6 million, technically legal, technically outside automatic review. The law designed to protect national security had a $50 million blind spot, and the purchase fit perfectly inside it. Here is the paradox. The law written to protect free market investment created the exact legal gap that made this purchase possible. Now, here is the part nobody wants to say out loud. Grand Forks was offered $700 million in economic development. 2,000 jobs in a city of 59,000 people. That is not a small offer. That is a lifeline. City officials were not naive. They were not compromised. They were facing a struggling economy, and someone handed them a solution. They voted yes because the law allowed it and because nobody told them what was flying overhead. Identify financially desperate American communities. Offer economic development they cannot refuse. Purchase land below federal review thresholds. Deploy agricultural infrastructure with dual-use potential. The real vulnerability is not Chinese intelligence capability. It is that Beijing has mapped exactly which American communities are financially desperate enough to vote yes before Washington can say no. That is not espionage. That is strategy. And it is working. So what does this mean for you specifically? 6 months from now, Texas, North Dakota, and Florida are finalizing legislation that bans foreign nationals from China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea from owning land within 100 miles of military installations. If you own property inside those zones, your competitive buyer pool is about to shrink. Foreign investment in American real estate near military bases has historically added 8 to 12% to property values in those markets. Remove that buyer pool and you may see short-term valuation pressure in those specific corridors. Not a crash, a recalibration. 12 months from now, USDA's updated AFIDA reporting requirements take effect. Any foreign land purchase over 10 acres requires disclosure within 90 days. For the first time, we will have a real map of what has been bought, where it sits, and who owns it. That map does not exist today. That is the problem, and that is about to change. What that map reveals will determine everything that comes next. 3 scenarios for the next 24 months. Red path. 20% probability. Congress fails to pass the Farm Act. CFIUS threshold stays at $50 million. Purchases continue. By 2027, an estimated 40 additional parcels near sensitive military installations change hands before mandatory federal review exists. Yellow path. 60% probability. This is the most likely outcome. Patchwork state laws create inconsistent protection. Some bases protected, others not. A national security strategy that depends on which state you happen to live in. Beijing adapts. Purchases shift to non-Chinese intermediary companies. American-named LLCs. Third country holding structures. Harder to track, same strategic result. Green path. 20% probability. The Farm Act passes federal review. Mandatory CFIUS review for all foreign agricultural purchases, regardless of dollar amount. The $50 million blind spot closes permanently. A national security map of restricted zones published publicly for the first time. Every American can see exactly where the vulnerabilities are. The difference between yellow and green path is whether enough Americans know this story exists. Every claim in this video has a source, starting with the land data itself. Pentagon FIRMA filings, the specific national security flag on the Fufeng deal public record, Link in description. Grand Forks City Council meeting transcripts, November 2021 through March 2022. Every vote, every discussion, every approval on public record. Senate Intelligence Committee China Threat Assessment 2022. The specific report that named agricultural infrastructure as a signals collection vector. FCC tower registration records used to calculate signal range parameters from the parcel coordinates. All 5 sources linked in the description below. Method: I overlaid land parcel, GPS coordinates against DoD, installation perimeter data, cross-referenced published signal collection range parameters from open-source military literature, then verified Fufeng's corporate structure through SEC filings and Chinese corporate registry records. What I do not know: whether Fufeng's specific intent was intelligence collection, that remains classified. Whether any actual signals data was collected before the deal collapsed, unknown. Whether the corporate links constitute a directed CCP operation or opportunistic compliance, unclear. This analysis is built entirely on public data. The threat assessment is the Pentagon's conclusion, not mine. One question before you go. If your city was offered $700 million in economic development, would your city council vote yes before asking Washington? Drop your answer below.